with it too. And too many people are really good at questioning authority. They're really good at that because it's so freaking easy. It's so easy to question someone else, but to actually speak with authority is much more difficult, and that's what it requires. That's what's required to sell yourself. Whether we're selling ourselves in business, and I'm telling you, this is what you have to do, whether we're speaking to someone who we're attracted to, and you're really speaking with authority about why it's important that you two are together. You know, it doesn't matter. You are speaking with authority. Uncertainty immediately makes us less attractive as people, in business too. That uncertainty. I think, now it's not to say you always have to pretend you know everything about everything, because you're either speaking with certainty or you're curious with certainty. Because if I'm talking to you about your business and I don't know anything about, let's say, plumbing, and I talk to you about plumbing and I ask you about it and I say, tell me about that thing, I'm still not uncertain, I'm just curious, because I don't know that. So I'm not going to try and speak on that subject. But if I do try and speak on a subject, I'm going to say it with complete authority. It really does help if what you're talking about, what you're selling, you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about it, there's a whole different set of sales skills you need to sell that thing, right? It can be done, but it's much easier, especially when you run your own business, it's much easier to be passionate about what it is you're selling. And whatever it is you're selling, you have to be passionate. Every single one of the programs that I do, I'm insanely passionate about. And when you're passionate about something on that level, you can be shameless about it. That's the difference. When you're passionate about something, you can be shameless. I do a program on impact. You know, what it is to walk into a room and truly have impact on someone. What it is to walk into a room, be able to work that room, be able to tell an amazing story, be able to persuade someone, get someone onto your level of thinking. And for me, it's the most important skill in the world. It's the most important skill in the world because it's the one skill that I've had to learn over the last 5 years religiously. Every single week I'm out and I'm doing this, I'm practicing it. I'm looking at my voice, I'm looking at my gesturing, I'm looking at the way I stand. Everything that I do is about impact. When I go on TV, I'm learning that same set of skills. When I'm talking to someone on the phone and talk to them about a course that I have, it's impact that comes out. So I'm insanely passionate when I talk about this. That's everything to me. I don't need to worry about holding back. I don't need to worry about being uncertain because I'm shameless about it. This is something I'm passionate about. This is something you must do. I know Anthony shares the same passion. It's like that passion that says, I have to do this. I have to communicate this to you. And that's what makes the difference. Is if I'm that passionate, I'm going to be able to sell you anything because I believe it too. Because I actually believe you should come and do this. That's the difference. And that's what we're looking for. By the way, while I'm on this subject, I have a link for you to go to. I've got a free gift for everyone in this room. There's a link for you to go to. It's www.matthewhussey.com. matthewhussey.com/21 convention. Okay, go there. I have something waiting for you there. It's just my gift to everyone for being in this room. matthewhussey.com/21 convention. Okay? We have to be passionate about whatever it is we're talking about. Now, I want you to take literally 2 minutes to write down. If there's, because I always believe you shouldn't ever leave the site of a talk like this, learning something new, figuring something out, getting some clarity, without actually taking some form of action. I want everyone to take 2 minutes to write down, okay? As a result of being here, if this has been an hour of my life, okay? This is an hour of my life that I will never get back. I have to make sure that this hour actually benefits me in some way, because if all it did was stimulate me for a few minutes and then I went back to normal life, then it was a waste of time. In these 2 minutes, I want you to write down, what action has this prompted me to take? And it may be in business, it may just be in your career in general right now, but I want you to write down, what has this talk prompted me to do? What action must I take as a result of this talk? If I were thin slicing it and I said there's one action right in front of me, what would that action be? I want you to write it down. All right. Real modeling. This is why we call it real modeling. Because imagine this is you right now. When most of us think about who we're going to model, when we look at this concept of modeling, we look at the person that's at the top of our field, at the top of our game. So we look to this person here who's like a giant. The biggest person in our field. Now, the problem with this person is that they're not that accessible. We don't just have access to this person. You can't just call them up and say, hey, how did you do it? Or can you help me? Because these people are used to getting those calls every single day. And even taking them to lunch doesn't work, does it? You can't, everyone says, oh, network that person, take them to lunch or whatever. This person gets offered to lunch 5 times a day. They can only eat so much lunch. They don't care. Right? So that's not going to work with that person, but there's someone who's right here. This person is just a small distance in front of you. You don't need to know everything that the giant knows in order to make a small gap, bridge a small gap in your business. You just need to know what the person immediately in front of you does. So when you're doing this, pick someone who's immediately in front of you and model them. Get access to them. And by the way, they'll be much more happy to give you access because it will be an ego trip for them. Whereas this person's over it. The person directly in front of you gets a kick out of seeing someone who's just behind them trying to get some help. Okay? And you can actually get close to this person, whereas this person you can't even get close to, let alone model them. The whole concept of modeling is based on modeling people's specific strategies. What do they do every single day? What do they think? What do they feel? How do they behave? Everything. How can you do that with this person when you don't even know what they were doing last week? We have no idea, so you can't truly model that person. Okay, one more example. What did someone choose? What did someone say they were going to do as a result? Yes, in the corner.
Take a lot more risks. That if I want to do something, just go and do it rather than thinking about whether...
Okay, so I'm going to take a lot more risks. What I think you should do is later today, sit down and write down what are the top 5 risks you could take that would have the most payoff. Okay? Fantastic.
Cheers.
All right, what I'm going to do lastly, before answering a couple of questions is, I want to write down the features that I've found in most of the best entrepreneurs that I know. And I want to just list what it is I see that's different about them to other people, so that we can at least start to model that. And maybe decide whether it's right or wrong for you, because I genuinely don't think being an entrepreneur is right for everyone. But there are some people who it's perfect for. Let's look at the characteristics that they have. One, I've found that, as we said, every one of these people has an ability to sell themselves. Every one of these people has an ability to sell themselves. Okay? They are good at that skill. Most of them are exceptional at that skill. You put them in a room with someone, and at the end of that sitting, someone wants to buy something from them, or they want to hire them, or they want to be around them. They're just persuasive people. Next, they have a high stress threshold. They are used to dealing with large amounts of stress and dealing with it well. In fact, some of the best guys that I know, they don't experience massive highs or massive lows. They're just kind of happy and constant. Often I worry when I see someone who experiences this extreme high as soon as something goes well. I worry a little bit, because usually that person is also very good. As soon as something goes badly, they're good at plummeting in that moment. We have to be very careful with our emotions in this, because your emotions are going to be messed with every step of the way. You'll get something go right, and then the next day something will go badly wrong. It's extremely important to have that even emotion across the board. It doesn't mean you're neutral. It doesn't mean you feel nothing. It actually means that you're at a higher level of happiness than most people are, but you're not feeling the extremes all of the time. Because if you're feeling that in business, you're going to go grey before your time. Next, stamina. These guys have stamina. They know that whether or not they get there today is kind of irrelevant. They're still going to be doing the same thing next week and the week after and the week after. They have that stamina, even when stuff is going wrong. By the way, just going back to that stress point, there are going to be times in your business where things go really badly. Like, badly. And it's going to sting. Those moments are the moments where you become lean, emotionally. Most people have those moments and they crumble. But when I look back on those moments for me now, those are the moments where I got lean. I had a moment where One of my worst moments, the moments I hated the most, or it was a little period, was I'd met someone who was an amazing guy, an amazing client, who was very, very wealthy, and he had this tiny little corner office in Mayfair. And I didn't have an office at the time. I was working out of Starbucks. So he was like, I have this tiny little office. You've helped me. Do you want to operate out of there for a little while? And this was like, he was an angel to me. Now, when he said, do you want to operate out of there, what he was talking about was me paying 1/10 of the rent that you're supposed to pay in that area, which is one of the most expensive areas in the whole of London. I got there, I realized that this 1/10 of what it would cost me was still all the money that I had, but I needed to be there. So it was a choice really between doing that or having a box apartment. In the moment, I decided I wanted the office because the office would give me credibility, the apartment wouldn't. So I decided, okay, I'm going to get this little office. So I got this tiny little office, and for a period of a couple of months, I was sleeping on the floor of this office, and I hated it with a passion. I had this little sleeping bag, and I couldn't let anyone know that I was sleeping there because they would have chucked me out. I know they would have had a problem with it. So I had to roll this sleeping bag up every night, or unroll it every night, sleep in the sleeping bag, wake up at 4 in the morning before the cleaners got there, put it back, pretend I was the first one in the office, and then at the end of the night, pretend I was the last one there before I rolled it out again. I hated it. I hated it. Imagine meeting someone on a night out as well, and you have to go back to your office. You know, it's like, it was just terrible. It was a terrible time. And now, it wasn't that my parents didn't have a house. My parents were living out in Essex at the time. They had a house, but I knew that by being out there, I wouldn't be meeting the right people. I knew I had to be here. In order to meet the right people, I had to be here. And while I was here, that was a really depressing time for me. But that was also the time where I got emotionally lean. I learned to deal with most of the crap. Now, nothing that I have today compares with what I felt then. And it also makes me unafraid of going back to that period because I know that I got through it. You get emotionally lean in those tough moments. Next, you have to believe that if you do everything, that if you work hard, you're going to get the result. You have to believe that. You have to believe that if you do everything right, or if you actually put the work in, you're going to get the result. If you don't, it's a torturous battle trying to get through it all. You have to believe that if I do this stuff, if I work hard, it will happen for me. It will happen. I will get what I deserve. And I genuinely believe, I have a core belief that if you work hard, you'll be rewarded. I really believe that. If you work hard, you'll be rewarded. That doesn't mean there aren't some smarter ways of working hard than others, but I just believe at the end of the day, if you do your homework, you'll get rewarded in any area of life. And lastly, I think you have to be a little bit mental. I honestly do. I honestly believe that to become a really successful entrepreneur, you've got to be a little bit fucking crazy. Most of the people that I know that are really good, that are at the top of their game, they're a little nuts. They're not necessarily nuts in front of people, but they're a little nuts. They're functioning nutcases. That's what they are. You know how you get functioning alcoholics? These people are like functioning nutcases. And there is kind of a little obsessive streak in them that says, I got to get ahead, I got to get ahead, I got to do this. Even if I've been rejected on the phone 20 times, I've got to make the 21st call. I've got to keep going. They have that in them. And I believe we have to have that because I think the road is too long. Like, I genuinely think starting your own business and going down that road is difficult. And I wouldn't let anyone tell you that it's not. I think it's really difficult. I had a moment at the end of, and I'll wrap up with this point before we do a couple of questions. I had this moment at the end of one of my seminars. One of the businesses that I have is called Get the Guy, and it's a business that coaches women in their love lives. Now, this business, I've been running events in this area for the last 2-3 years. I got to the end of an event, and I'd been speaking for probably 12 hours on Saturday and again on Sunday. It had been a